Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the public meetings of November
Your mic's off.
16th. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the public meetings, November 16th. So we have two public meetings today, one for Sean Miller and another one for John Loechner. So we're going to start with the Sean Miller one, and on completion of that, we'll move into the next planning meeting. This public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act is declared open. The first application being heard is a proposal to consider an application submitted by Sean Miller to amend the Township Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, Bylaw 22, 2003. The Planning Act requires that notice of the public meeting be given at least 20 days before the public meeting is held. Would the planner confirm the dates the notice was given?
Yes, Your Worship. Notice was given on October 28th.
Thank you. Notice of this public meeting having been given in accordance with the Planning Act, I now declare the meeting properly constituted to transact its business. Any person wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding the application being considered must send an email request to the Township office immediately following this meeting. Anyone who previously sent an email concerning the application will receive a digital notice of decision without further action. As required by Section 34(14)(5) of the Planning Act, Council is required to inform the public of who is entitled to appeal to the Land Planning Appeal Tribunal under Section 34(11) and 19. Under Section 34(11), if Council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 150 days of the municipal clerk receiving the application, the applicant or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Under Section 34(19), not later than 20 days after the giving of notice of passing of the bylaw, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submissions at the public meeting or made a written submission to Council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Would the planner please describe the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Thank you, Your Worship. This application came in to rezone a property from its current zoning, which is in the tourism commercial zoning, to the highway commercial zoning to permit a boat and recreational vehicle storage establishment. The property owner has plans to construct two large buildings, approximately 60 by 120 feet long, to do predominantly indoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles.
Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this amendment? Are there any questions from, does anyone wish to speak in favor of this amendment? Are there any questions from members of Council? Seeing none. Are there any written comments that were received?
Yes, I received comments from the abutting property at the motel property on Calabogie Road from the owner, Mr. Eric Dyes. He had some questions and concerns about the location of the buildings and how the development would transpire and the approvals required for this. Mr. Dyes was sent an invitation to this meeting, but I think he was generally satisfied, and he will be given a notice of the decision. And another property owner, Catherine Lemanchek, had some questions about the development as well. And her comments, I'll relay them to Council, were for the preservation of trees and protection of any wetlands on the property. And she also just had some general questions about the proposed development.
Thank you. This therefore completes the public meeting process. Council will give careful consideration to the application for the zoning bylaw amendment. And if there are no further questions or comments, which I see none, I therefore declare this meeting closed. Thank you. And we'll move to the next planning item. This public meeting is held under Section 34 of the Planning Act, and it's declared open. The second application being heard is a proposal to consider an application submitted by John Loechner of Cabinscape on behalf of Calabogie Peaks Resort to amend the Township Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. The Planning Act requires that notice of public meeting be given at least 20 days before the meeting is held. Would the planner confirm the date the notice was given?
Yes, I can confirm that notice was given on October 28th.
Notice of this public meeting having been given in accordance with the Planning Act, I now declare the meeting properly constituted to transact its business. Any person wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding the application being considered must send an email request to the Township office immediately following the meeting. Anyone who previously sent an email concerning the application will receive digital notice of decision without further action. As required by Section 34(14)(5) of the Planning Act, Council is required to inform the public of who is entitled to appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal under Section 34(11) and 19. Section 34(11), if Council decides to refuse an application or refuses or neglects to make a decision on an application within 150 days of the municipal clerk receiving the application, the applicant or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Under Section 34(19), not later than 20 days after the giving of notice of passing of the bylaw, the applicant, any person or public body who made oral submissions at the public meeting or made a written submission to Council before the bylaw was passed, or the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing an appeal with the clerk of the municipality. Would the planner please describe the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a zoning bylaw amendment, as mentioned. It's to rezone the lands at the end of Mary Joanne Drive and up the side of the Calabogie Peaks ski hill lands. We're not going to change the zoning category that the lands are in, but we're adding a new permitted use. The applicant, Cabinscape, is proposing to install up to 10 pre-manufactured cabins along the side of the hill and in forested areas on the ski hill. And this use wasn't it's not currently permitted, and the zoning bylaw amendment would permit this use. When I wrote the bylaw and the notice, I was specific to the size of the proposed cabins and giving an upper maximum. Right now, their proposal is up to 10. And so we'll hold them at that and see how it works. And if their business flourishes, then they can come back for additional approvals. But that's the purpose of this application.
Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the amendment? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the amendment? Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor McPherson?
Luke, in terms of the structures themselves, I know that you've indicated, as you said, you've been very specific about the size. Are they meant to be permanent structures with a typical foundation, or are they portable structures that would be brought in, set on a temporary foundation, and then easily movable somewhere else?
I believe the latter. I believe that they're going to be transported in. I don't believe that there's any permanent foundation of poured concrete or the likes, and I don't believe that they'll be affixed to the ground. But at the same account, they may, I don't know the duration. They may be there for a long time, for example.
All right. Just any concerns from an environmental standpoint? Any issues been raised by any parties?
No, I don't have concerns in that regard. The units are relatively small. The smaller version is only 96 square feet. So we're talking a 10 by 10 unit, which is quite compact. I think the one of the missions of this company is to be environmentally sensitive, and that's the type of clientele that they're seeking to attract. So I don't anticipate any attempts to fill in wetlands or unnecessarily disrupt the locations of the buildings. There's no wells or septics associated. It is a composting toilet, so they'll have to manage that. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Luke, can you confirm whether building permits are needed for these structures?
Yes, absolutely. It will be a requirement. Each unit, regardless of their size, will require a building permit for their installation. Yeah.
And what's the reason that you need a building permit on the 96 square foot one?
Well, the fact that it's a dwelling. I think, that comment was raised that they're under the threshold in the Building Code Act, but I think it's counterintuitive to allow a small building to be constructed as a dwelling and somebody living in it without a building permit or a proper review. So that will be a requirement for these units.
Okay. And when is this project supposed to start?
I think they're looking for the installation this fall.
Okay.
There may be some ski in and ski out possibility for the clients, and also, but they'll be there year round. I think and again, there may not be up to 10 at this point in time. It may start with a lower number. But I understand the group is looking to get going.
Thank you.
I've also, just for council's information as well, I've also made the group aware that we won't be permitting any on-street parking for these units because they are going to be a form of walk-in unit. So I have made it clear that they're going to have to find arrangements so that people aren't parking on our roads and disrupting our winter maintenance as well.
Are there any written comments that were received?
For this application, I have not received comments. No.
Okay, this therefore completes the public meeting process. Council will give careful consideration to the application for zoning bylaw amendment. And with no further comments or questions, I declare the public meeting closed. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon again, and welcome to the council meeting of November 16th. Be it resolved that the Township of Greater Madawaska calls to order the November 16th regular council meeting at 3 p.m. All in favor? Carried. And we have two additions to the agenda. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff, that the agenda of the council meeting of November 16th be approved as amended. 8.11.8, bylaw 77-2020, assumption and acquisition of Williams Ranch Road, and 9.11.6, date of the special council meeting in November. All in favor? Carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. No delegations. Facilities. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council approved sole sourcing an audio PA system for the Calabogie Rink to Baldwin Audio Visual Solutions of Ottawa, provided the Raise the Roof Committee agrees to fund the full cost of the system. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Five 5.11.11, excess speed and vehicle radar detection on County Road 511. Discussion item.
So as I brought this forward.
Sorry, this item was brought forward to staff, and this has been included in the budget. That's something will be purchased that will be utilized throughout the township.
What do we? Excellent. So we've gotten approval from the county to place it on some of their roads in the event that's where we place them too.
So it's a vehicle radar detection. So when there's been complaints of speed on various roads, that this could be placed and could provide feedback to staff to determine if there is in fact a concern or not.
Councillor McPherson.
So I'm still not, I understand what the equipment is for. I'm still not sure how it's being procured or funded.
It will be funded, it will be budgeted as part of the 2021 budget. So it's not part of this year. It'll be a project for next year. So you have an opportunity to have it discussed further, but it has been included in the budget that Renee is presenting.
Okay, so I just want to be sure that because I at this point we have no idea. No one has suggested what the costs associated with it are.
So approximately $5,000.
All right. And it's one unit, several, portable.
So it's portable and it is one unit.
Okay. Any research been done with respect to its reliability, the ongoing maintenance costs?
So the one version that I have looked into, a neighboring municipality has just purchased. They did provide me with samples of what the reports look like. And so it's relatively new, so they weren't able to provide comment on the maintenance costs, but to date they were satisfied with what they were receiving from the unit.
Okay. All right. Obviously, we get an opportunity to discuss it further, as you said, when the budget is presented.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm assuming we're not approving purchase of it today.
No, so the purpose of this was just to advise council and the public that we recognize and have heard concerns about speed on various roads, one of which is 511, and that we are looking into ways to track that information and provide that information to whatever level of government or OPP would be most beneficial in receiving it.
Okay, thank you.
And 511.2 is the capital work plan, which was included in your packages. So this, I'm not sure we would call all of this capital work plan. It's also operations plan for the winter months. Would that be correct, Allison? Yes. So, so our public works supervisor has come up with this idea, and so he's looked at all the capital projects that we're going to work on next year, and then other work that needs to be done, and scheduled them in so that if we have a late season without snow, that the guys have projects to go and work on, and also, you know, if quite often through the winter we have a week or days of good weather when they can be out doing brushing and so on, so that he always has a task on hand for them. And so I personally very much like this idea. Is keeps our forces busy, and it gives us a great jump on some of the capital work that we're going to be doing, especially like the brushing in at the KNP and over Berryville Road. There's quite an amount of work to be done, and he's hoping to get that done in the winter, so that will give us a great jump on the spring, and also it's keeping the employees busy through the winter months. So is there any questions on this schedule? Okay, and I don't believe there's any update from that department. Environmental, there's nothing new happening there. Protection services, 711-1 is Eagle Nest concerns. Allison, you want to speak to that?
So this is a concern we've received several in the past, and staff can absolutely provide a response to this. There is a plan in place. It is presented to council later in the package of how we're intending to approach the parking concerns. And so really there's nothing here I don't think that staff cannot respond to. And with regard to making access may be restricted by the MNR, I don't think that would be anything that MNR would do based on conversations I have had with them. We did ask that the trails be closed for the first 2 weeks of November. We were denied, but could put notices advising of the risks associated with hikers in the area. So if there's no concerns with staff responding to this, this can absolutely be addressed in a timely manner.
I guess further to that, we did approach the MNR in the spring as well, when COVID first hit us and the hikers were coming to the area, asking them about closing. And as a matter of fact, we went a step further as to actually close the trail, and we were told to open it, that we had no jurisdiction, and they wouldn't agree to have the trail closed. So some of the requests that are in the letter, we've already tried that avenue and it didn't work. The other thing is about, as far as the parking lot, like Allison said, we'll talk to it later, but we are getting an enormous amount of emails and phone calls suggesting that the township has to do something to get the cars off the road for the safety of the ratepayers of the township, as well as any visitors to the area. So it's not only dangerous for the hikers that are coming the way it is today with parking on the side of the road, it's also dangerous for the public that is traveling through and, you know, coming upon vehicles that are stopped to let people in or out. And so, you know, although I appreciate the concerns in the letter, you know, there's probably a bigger fanfare going the other way saying it, what are you going to do and when are you going to do it? So once again, as Allison said, we're going to address the parking lot a little later on, and we can get into a further discussion then. But in the meantime, Allison, I guess I'll ask Charles, first of all, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, no, you've pretty much covered it. Like he's, you know, suggesting the OPP could take care of it, but as we know, they don't have the same powers up here as they do in Southern Ontario. So it's, you know, he's just kicking the can around like everyone has been all year, which is fine. That's their right. And to write to us, the council, and to have this as an information item. It's obviously everyone's paying attention, and that's a good thing anyway. And as we do, we've already addressed the fact that we do have a lot of seniors, and you know, we've put in as much as we could, like you said, even overstepping our boundaries this past March, but that's behind us now. So
Okay,
no, this is all good.
Glenn, Councillor McPherson?
Yeah, so as you said, Mayor, we'll discuss this further when we get into the later agenda item, and it won't be just discussing a parking lot. So we'll leave it at that right now. And I just want to make it clear that the later item is not just about discussing a parking lot.
Okay, thank you. And no concern there. So then we move to 8/11/11 building permit report, October 31st. 8/11/1. So you have the building permit report there, and you can see that the department has been very busy. We've moved over at the end of October. We've moved over last year's total for the year. So with 20 new residents coming in, and then other renovations to residences of 84. So it has been a busy year in the building department, and obviously that'll increase the tax base that helps out all of the ratepayers of the township. So this resolution on Williams Ranch Road is called 8/11/1. Where do I bring that in, Allison?
That's the later item. I must have wrote it on the wrong page.
Pardon me?
I must have wrote the note on the wrong page. Just disregard.
No, this is called the 8/11/1. Oh, maybe it should be 8/11/10. Bring it in here.
It must be, yeah.
Okay. Do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so once again, that's the building permit report, which is an information item. Item 8/11/2 is Algonquins of Ontario treaty negotiations. So there's a bunch of documentation in the file in your report. Is there any questions on that? So seeing none, update on the Algonquin land claim. Once again, any questions on the land claim? Seeing none. Bylaw 73/2020 zoning bylaw amendment. Sean Miller. Have a resolution, oh, here. Sean Miller. Okay, it's just numbered wrong. So item 8.11.4, bylaw 73/2020 zoning bylaw amendment, Sean Miller. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff, that council approves bylaw 73/2020 to rezone part of lot 18, concession 11, Bagot, from tourist and commercial exception 15 holding to highway commercial exception 1 to permit a boat and recreational vehicle storage establishment. Any questions? All approved? Carried. And 8.11.5. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council approves bylaw 74/2020 to permit a maximum of 10 short-term rental cabins on Calabogie Peaks Resort property and located in the tourism commercial exception 8 zone. All in favor? Carried. Property standards, is that an information item, Luke?
No, as I stated in the report, there was just a few missed cross references to different sections that I wanted to clean up in this bylaw. So that's all it does. Not the content of the bylaw hasn't changed. It just has some correct section references.
What's the proper standards? What's proper standards?
It's,
Just ignore it. Yeah, if you can ignore the number. I don't know why it did it.
okay, so we do have a resolution on that. So moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council repeals bylaw 32/2020, known as property standards bylaw, and furthermore, the council approves bylaw 75/2020, known as the property standards bylaw. Any questions of council on that? All in favor? Carried. And Eagle's Nest project information item. Allison, that'll be you.
So this is an update that was brought. We started bringing this last month just to show the work plan with regard to addressing the parking concerns that do exist at the Eagle's Nest. Luke has accomplished quite a bit. There's still some ways to go, but we are making progress on this project to look to see if there's even an ability to expand the parking lot or our parking lot. So I don't know if there's any questions or concerns about this at this time.
Councilor McPherson. Yes, Councilor McPherson.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think how to approach this. I know it's a sensitive subject. And I guess I go back to a comment that you made, Mayor, back a few minutes ago about how we don't even have jurisdiction over this set of trails. We can't control them, we can't manage them, but yet we're looking to invest taxpayer dollars to enhance this set of trails. And it's the Ministry of, I think you said Ministry of Natural Resources, whoever it is, but it's a provincial ministry that actually should be taking responsibility for them. They are insisting that they remain open, then they should be stepping up and covering any associated costs. Personally, I have a real issue with any taxpayer funds being spent beyond what we've already done. And the reason I say that, like we talked about safety, the safety issue isn't going to go away because you're not going to build a parking facility. And I've heard people comment on there being as many as 200 cars there on occasion. So no matter how big the parking lot is that you could conceivably come up with and somehow manage to afford to build, you're not going to get all the cars off the road. So it comes back to common sense, and that goes both ways, both with the people traveling on the road as well as the people that are visiting the trails. And heaven forbid that some tragedy would occur, but let's take that another step further. You build a great big parking lot, but you're going to put it on the other side of the road. People still have to cross the road. It's still going to be an issue. And I have a real problem, again, with spending taxpayer dollars. If there's a provincial grant to do this and it doesn't cost the taxpayers a cent, then go for it. I'm all in favor of it. I know I mentioned in the last meeting that I attended that I'm very concerned about Madawaska Road. And for 6 years, I've sat on council and I've kept my mouth shut, much to the chagrin of many of my constituents who have approached me on many occasions and said, when are we going to do something with these roads? They finally deteriorated to the point where, thankfully, one half of the road is in the works to be addressed next year. The other half is not. Personally, before I see any taxpayer dollars spent or any money spent on building a parking lot for hiking trails, I want to see our dangerous roads taken care of first. Like you talk about safety, roads that are deteriorating and have humps and dips and dives and whatever, they're not safe. So let's address that first. And then we can worry about a hiking trail. And again, the majority of the people that we're concerned about here are people that are not residents of this municipality. They're people that are driving in to visit. And again, somehow somebody else has to pay for it, not the taxpayers. And maybe there's some benefit that comes. Certainly in this year of COVID, there's literally no benefit. The majority of people, if they're following the rules, they aren't shopping at Charbonneau's. They aren't frequenting, the businesses in the municipality. So there's not even any benefit that way. And here we are, talking about spending money. So do a little bit of planning, but unless you can come up with dollars somewhere, I certainly hope that sanity prevails and we do not spend taxpayer dollars building a parking lot for a hiking trail that will bring nothing to this municipality or next to nothing.
I'm going to ask
So you're on mute.
Allison to respond to that first.
Very good point. And in actual fact, there is a grant that is available from the Ontario Trillium Resiliency Fund, and it's exactly for this purpose of trails. It's 100% funded up to $150,000. So I agree that the cost should be covered by a grant of some sort. There is that component. So we are looking for funding to pay for this so that it is not put on the taxpayers. As for the comment about the parking lot itself, that it's not going to be big enough. So there has been discussions surrounding that when the parking lot is constructed and it is full, if someone chooses to park on the road, it'll be made a no park zone on both sides of the road, and any parked cars would be towed. So to eliminate that risk. And that we do have the bylaw enforcement available that they can patrol the area on a regular basis. And then finally, with regard to Madawaska Road, I hear your comments, and as I've noted before, this will be addressed, and I'm sure it will be changed as part of the new asset management plan that the treasurer is working on.
All right. So just a comment on the on the parking on the road. I'm not sure where that suggestion came from, but it's pretty draconian. And again, just think in terms of the reflection on the community. If somebody, again, no, I don't know. I've never done an official poll, so I have no idea where people come from. But let's just assume that 80% of the vehicles that are parked along the side of the road on any given day are from out of town. And what we're going to say is, if somebody drives in from Ottawa and the parking lot is full, we're going to tell them they have to turn around and go back home.
Well, not necessarily. There's a business nearby that they could always reach out to them to see if they could park their vehicle there. So there are options available. This is just a plan. We're like at step one. We're just looking into, see it's a possibility. Are the players even interested? Because if the other players aren't interested, we're done. But we need to at least say that we have looked into the situation, assessed everything, and then I'm just updating council as to the steps that are being taken. And it's nothing more than that. Like, there's not like a check waiting to be signed to pay for a parking lot. I don't even know what the parking lot is going to be like, if it's for 10 cars or if it's for 250 cars. It's just, we're looking at some solutions to a problem that's existing, that, when you drive by and there's 300 cars and people are opening the doors into the highway, and then there's 2 cars meeting on the road, and there's dogs and there's kids, that something does need to be done. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe this isn't it, and this is going to get us to a final solution, but it's just to start someplace. And
again, I appreciate the hard work that staff does. Don't, I would hope that anybody on staff would never consider otherwise. And I appreciate the fact that that council does get informed. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but I would assume that for the the Ward 1 councillors living there closer by, they're more aware of what's going on in the discussions. This is great, being able to to get these sorts of updates, and I certainly do appreciate that. It's not that I don't want to see anything done. I just there at some point, when you're protecting people from themselves, you need to draw a line somewhere. And so looking forward to seeing what else comes forward. Again, also looking forward to an appropriate discussion, and decision-making process around any endeavors that would actually be enacted.
Well, and part of bringing this forward is that we can get some feedback from councillors to see if there's something that, something to consider, or something that we've missed, or just if someone does stop you on the street and says, "Oh my goodness, did you see all the cars?" You can say, "Yep, and we have a plan." Is it perfect? Right. Nope. But we're trying something.
Okay.
All right. Looking forward to the next update.
Councillor Perrier.
Yeah. I agree with you, Glenn, but part of me disagrees, because I think Eagles Nest, albeit it's mostly non-residents, I'm thinking it brings a lot of business to Calabogie. I'm thinking I see a lot of traffic, people going in and out of restaurants in Charbonneau, so I think it's good in that sense. Just a comment.
No, and for sure, Councillor Perry, you're right, because between the Redneck and the brewery across the street, the numbers are up like through the roof, like 208%. Sales are up, and that's from the people coming back down with their dogs and children, and coming in, eating and drinking or whatever, at our 2 facilities right there. And as far as when a parking lot is full, like you say, 80% of the people are tourists coming here, Glenn. And if they're coming from the Ottawa area, then they're very familiar with Gatineau and NCC. The parking lots there, when the parking lots are full, there is no parking on the road. You move along, make some other arrangements. That's the way it is, and NCC has been around longer than you and I.
Okay, thank you. And I was going to mention that as well. I've had residents come to me and because they want us to stop the parking on the road, and they cited examples of other lookout areas that if you don't get there in time to get into the parking lot, they suggest you come back another day. And so this safety concern is not just for the hikers, though. It's for the people traveling through, which are very much, we want to have concern about everyone, but it certainly is a concern for our ratepayers that are traveling through and the car in front of them comes to a sudden stop and they've jackknifed a trailer or something behind. So it is very dangerous. That road doesn't have hardened shoulders. It's narrow at that intersection. The idea is if we get a parking lot, if we're able to get a grant, and as well as going for a grant, our planner is putting together a proposal, and we're going to the county and going to the MNR. And when we go to the MNR, we're going to ask them about doing a parking lot. But we're also looking at other avenues of funding to get it. But I think we do have to make every effort to get those vehicles off the road because it is very, very dangerous. And I personally have no problem with once the parking lot is full, you can't stay. And at that point, once the parking lots are full, the trails are getting pretty full. With 200 vehicles with 2 to 3 people in each vehicle, I think it is maybe too much for our trails anyway. So to have it a reduced capacity, I think maybe would make the enjoyment of the trails probably even better. I guess just on another note, because we certainly Ward 1 councillors and myself, we get emails weekly at least, sometimes daily, about this, the concern that the residents have on it, and when are we going to do something. So we're being pushed hard about coming up with a plan. So we'll come up with a plan and bring it back to council. Obviously, at that point, council will make the final decision on it. But the idea is to show the public that we are working on a plan, trying to come up with a solution, and then we'll have to iron out the fine details of it later. Okay, anything further on that? And bylaw 77/2020, assumption Williams Ranch Road. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor McPherson. The council approves bylaw 77/2020 for the acquisition and assumption of 125 meters of Williams Ranch Road. And I'll ask Luke to speak to that before we vote on it.
Thank you. So I think council is aware of the location of Williams Ranch Road at present. We had a request from the developer in the Berryville community to construct this road. It was a peculiar situation where a lot was created through a plan of subdivision that had no legal access to it. So there seemed to be an obligation to allow the construction of this road. And so the first part of the road, 84 meters, has been constructed fully, including surface treatment and to provide access to a building lot. And it seemed to go very well. There was no issues that I can identify. And at present, there's a house going up on this building lot. So that's great. And the developer has asked now for an extension to this road. So council entered into a road agreement to spell out the specifics of this road extension. It was 125 meters. It's predominantly done at present. We're missing a few of the final steps, such as the final granulars, granular M, and the surface treatment. But there's a building project that would like to get started this fall. And so I've taken, as of this morning, a check of $25,000 for securities for the works that's remaining, which should far exceed any value of the necessary works. I think we're adequately protected, and I'm recommending that we assume the final portion so that a building permit can be issued.
Okay, questions of council? Seeing none, all in favor of this resolution? Carried. And we'll move to finance and admin tender 6-2020 website. Do you want to speak to that, Allison?
So there was a tender out to update the township website. We did receive 4 bids. However, none of them had any or very limited municipal experience, and the bids were very varying in their degree. So at this time, I would ask that council reject all the bids and that a new tender document be reissued and sent to some specific providers that specialize in municipalities.
Councillor Perry.
The bids we're looking at, all of them had limited experience in terms of municipal, right? On the previous RFP, was that a mandatory requirement?
There was points associated with having.
Okay. So you're issuing a new RFP. Is there a statement of work, just so I understand the process?
So it is all laid out in the RFP. If you would like, I can send it to you prior to it being issued.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Councillor McPherson.
I just a question about the cost, Allison. So how much, because there's no reference here to the impact with respect to cost. How much was budgeted for this?
$30,000.
Okay, so only one came even relatively close to that, came under. The others were all substantially higher. So there may be a concern with trying to actually get a bid that's where somebody with municipal experience that will come even remotely close to what we've budgeted then.
So I did speak with the grant coordinator for the county of Renfrew, and he felt the challenge laid in the fact that he doesn't think that the providers of municipal websites actually saw the tender. So they didn't actually submit a bid. He feels that the budget is adequate for the size and what we're requesting. So he feels that the budget is reasonable. So that's why he suggested, it was his recommendation that we reject and reissue.
We've talked before about sharing. Can't think of the proper terminology right now, but is there any opportunity for looking at something like this in conjunction with other municipalities that might help, moderate the cost to a certain degree?
So we do have a draft tender waiting to go pending council's approval. And prior to that, I did ask the treasurer to contact the other municipalities that in the lake, and nobody was interested at this time.
Okay.
And just on that note, I've asked that all the tenders, any tender that we're going to issue going forward, that the treasurers contact all our neighboring municipalities to see if they're going out for something similar, to look for those efficiencies.
Okay. So I'll read the resolution moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff, that council rejects all bids received on tender 06-2020 website redesign and instructs staff to reissue the tender document. All in favor? Carried. And 9-11-2, waive 2020 annual fee Lions Club. Allison, you speaking to it?
I'll
Renee,
be,
sorry.
yeah, I'll be speaking to it. So the Lions Club has approached staff regarding the annual fee that gets paid every year of $3,500 as per their agreement from 2016. There's a clause in there that says if the annual fee is too cumbersome in a given year, that the Lions Club can present to council to have the fee waived for financial relief. In 2020, due to COVID, they have not been able to fundraise. Therefore, they discussed with us and requested that we bring this forward to council. We do have some funding available, COVID-19 Safe Restart funding that is meant for these types of items. Therefore, what we're asking here is that council forgive the $3,500 and that we would fund it through the restart funding.
Questions of council? Councillor Perrier.
Can you give me a little blurb, Renee, in terms of what that restart funding is? I don't. This is the first time I hear that.
I'm sorry, you were cutting in and out on that one. Were you asking for more clarification on what the funding is used for?
No. What is it? I've never heard of the restart funding. Just so I know.
We received $166,000 of COVID restart funding. It's meant for operational items due to COVID. So we're able to use some funding for, hand sanitizer, higher maintenance or whatnot. There's only so many items we could use in regards to operationally, because for us, it's more of a capital changes. So yeah, so this is what it's used for. We have 166,000. We've been using it for, additional maintenance costs, and then we have room to use it for this type of item for waiving fees. Therefore, the loss of revenue for it would be our thing for this one.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, and for me, it's more just a comment as opposed to a question. I think that the Lions clubs in our community, that they provide a great service. I know I just received the annual letter requesting support for their Christmas hamper provisioning that they do, and it's great to see service organizations such as the Lions clubs doing what they do in our community. And so if we have the opportunity to help them out, I certainly am one that I'm very much in favor of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council forgive the 2020 Calabogie Lions Club annual fee of $3,500 due to extraordinary circumstances, COVID-19. And furthermore, council approves the annual fee to be funded by the COVID-19 Safe Restart funding. All in favor? Carried. $2019 year-end surplus.
Yes, so this is to allocate the surplus of $150,714 for our 2019. I'm recommending, our staff is recommending that we allocate it to the reserve debt just to clear it to zero, as well as allocate the additional, the remaining surplus of $139,245 to the roads reserve. The reason for the roads reserve is that we do have larger road projects going into 2021. So allocating it to that reserve would allow us to utilize it in 2021 for some road works.
Councillor Perrier.
Would this help Councillor McPherson's concern with Madawaska? Oh, come on, Councillor, I'm trying to help you out.
Oh, I know. I'm sure you saw the wheels turning when I read this back after I received the agenda. That was a thought that came to mind.
Okay, I'm just wondering on this, Renee, if this will be an annual thing, and rather than saying reserve roads. I'm wondering if we should be saying reserves TCA account, tangible capital asset, and then because it's not only coming from the roads department, it might be coming from facilities or whatever. And if we have one reserve for capital in general, rather than specifying it just for roads.
I think this is just the cart before the horse. So what's going on is that in December, I'll be bringing forward a reserve and reserve fund policy that will speak to different reserves and really streamline how we recommending how we could proceed with this,
Okay.
with the structure of the reserves and how we could utilize them as part of
Okay.
the future. So right now it's being presented like this because this is the structure of our current reserves.
Okay, I'm with you. So I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Riddlehoff. The council approved the allocation of the 2019 year-end surplus of $150,714 as follows. Reserve roads, 139,245. Reserve debt, 11,469. All in favor? Carried. Or draft budget. Renee?
Yeah, so in another time we'd be sitting in council chambers and you'd have your budget book on your desk and we just go summarize through it. So today, unfortunately, due to some technology barriers, the budget document is not distributed, but you'll be receiving in the next few days. You'll be receiving an electronic format or in a paper format, so you can go through it. But I wanted to provide a bit of highlights on what you'll be looking at. The budget for 2021 has been, like, the format has been simplified this year, and it includes in the front page a 2021 budget assumptions and pressures. So you'll be able to see what you'll be finding the changes or identifying changes in the 2020 budget or 2021 budget. I just want to flip into some of the changes identified is just the tax levy increase of 3.5%. This is just based off of the as per the asset management plan of a 1% growth and a 2.5% tax rate increase. I will be adjusting the taxation revenue come the end of this month when we receive the assessment roll for 2021. We don't have it yet, so I'm basing assumptions right now. You will be receiving an adjustment when the budget is brought for discussion in December. There's a slight decrease in OMPF funding also that you'll see in there. Other assumptions have been made, such as the discussed 1.5% COLA increase, some pay equity changes, as well as the increase to policing fund or the policing budget of 3.5%. Other than that, there's minimal changes, an increase of 7% for insurance, but these are all summarized at the front of your budget, so you'll be able to go through that and go through the budget and reference back and forth. The capital works include we still have some modernization funding available. Therefore, there's projects that are as part of the funding, as well as projects that come from reserve for the asset management plan projects. Madawaska is included in the budget, so Madawaska Road, as well as 2 international trucks are due for renewal as per the asset management plan. So those are also included as part of a debenture. The interest rate for a 5-year debenture right now is only 1%. Therefore, bringing accelerating projects at the minimal additional charge is beneficial to us. So we'll have the use of some development charges also. The development charges review is coming up at the end of 2021. Therefore, usually when you review development charges, you're required to utilize the funds that you've accumulated to date. So we're using some of those. Yes, and as I spoke to the modernization funds. So The intent right now is just to table it, usually to have it on your table. Over the next few weeks, I'll be available for any questions or concerns regarding the budgets. And so I'm hoping to have all questions answered by the week before the next meeting, which is December 7th, and then the meeting's of December 14th. I plan on distributing all the responses to all of council, so everybody knows what clarifications I've provided to one councillor. So yeah, so you'll be receiving the digital copy shortly. In the next few days, you receive a hard copy, and if you have any questions or concern, you could bring them forward to me, and I could provide clarification.
Councillor Perry.
Would you like us to pick them up, or the hard copies, right?
It'll be up to you.
Okay.
So I'll be sending, the only thing that's missing on the current copy is I want to watermark it draft all the way across, just to make sure that it's considered draft. Otherwise, it's ready to be distributed.
Okay, thanks.
So this will be distributed. If anyone has questions, you want them to go back to you, and then it'll be discussed at a special council meeting?
Yeah, so the intent would be, I believe at this point, to have to deliberate it at the December 14th council meeting. So, and then of course, if there's a special meeting in between that, we could have a conversation about it. And then if there's questions, concerns between that, I can provide clarification and then distribute to council, all of council, the responses, so everybody has the same information.
Thank you. Maybe I'll make council aware that I did have a phone call from MPP Yakubuski and to inform us that our township would be receiving another $100,000 on the COVID fund. And the first 166 that we received, as Renee mentioned, was the Restart program, but that was to be used for operational. And this 100,000 had, so he said, had no restrictions on it. And we were thinking that we could use that for the audio for council chambers as one item. Now, have we, but after I was told that this would be coming and that there was no restrictions on it, there's some confusion whether we have to apply for it. Have we found an answer to that, whether we have to apply, Renee?
We have asked questions, and we did send we have sent an email asking several questions last week. As of today, we still have not received a response. Mm-hmm. However, there was a document that was circulated just prior to this meeting with program guidelines, and I believe it relates to the $100,000, but I haven't had a chance to review it.
Okay. So anyway, these dollars are out there, and I think they'll be coming, so they'll probably form part of the budget, so we can discuss that at a later date anyway. Okay. And the next item was December council meeting. Was that to set a time?
So the December council meeting is currently scheduled for December 21st. And this is to suggest that the meeting be moved to the 14th, as staff could be away on holidays or vacation, as it is getting very close to Christmas. And so it's just to see if there's any interest in moving the council meeting back to December 14th.
I have no problem.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay. Okay, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigelhoff, that the December regular council meeting be rescheduled to December 14th, 2020 at 3 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Date of a special council meeting. Allison?
The township received late last week the final report from Dillon Consulting as a result of the service delivery review that was done in collaboration with the LEG. And instead of trying to put it on this agenda, I'm seeing if there's any interest in having a special council meeting so that staff or so that council have adequate time to review the report. It's quite lengthy. So to give it to you today and ask you to make a decision on it later or now, I didn't think was a fair approach. So I'm asking if there be any availability to have a council meeting, a special council meeting to discuss the document later in November, because it does need to be approved by all the participants by December 4th and placed on our website. So I was wondering about the week of November 23rd or November 30th, if there was any interest or availability either of those weeks, perhaps November 24th.
Not for me.
Just for clarification, what's the document?
So if you will recall, the 7 municipalities. Sorry, I'm just going to read the mayor.
Okay, all right.
Yes, the 7 municipalities went and were successful in the grant, hired a consultant. They've been doing a service delivery review, and this is the final document. It's just it's quite long that you won't read it. If you read it in one day, you have more patience than I.
So what we need to do is pick a date that would work for
You're on
people,
mute.
and I think Lucy.
You're on mute.
So we need to pick a date that works for people, and I think that week of the 23rd isn't good for you, right, Lucy?
Well, if I can make a suggestion, I think we should have the meeting on Councillor McPherson's birthday, November 28th.
That's a Saturday, Lucy.
So, what about the 27th?
There's some staff that aren't available that day.
Okay. Well, I need at least a day to recoup from surgery, so the 24th doesn't work for me. Apologies.
And I have county council on the 25th.
Does
The
November
30th?
30th work?
The 30th works for me.
Me too.
When would that work for you?
Yeah, at this point, it should be fine. Oops, sorry.
Okay, so I will send the document in advance so that you have adequate time to review it, and then a special agenda will be circulated on November 30th.
Are we thinking 3 o'clock again?
If that works.
Oh, how much time do you?
I would think an hour would be more than enough.
And are there going to be other items other than lag?
I have one other item that I would
Okay.
like to, and if council wishes, if there's adequate questions, we can bring forward the budget document once you've had a chance to review it.
Mhm.
Okay. No chairperson update, economic development, nothing. Community parks and recreation, proposal from Renfrew Public Library.
Hey,
So
if I can speak to that as board chair, please. We did have an awesome presentation from Kelly Thompson from the Renfrew Public Library. Although we didn't get the presentation before, several questions were raised. There's a lot of synergies that we can achieve. And so I've tasked 2 members of our board to deal with Kelly in terms of preparing a service agreement. So they're at it now. So anyways, that's all. Allison, if you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to just copy what Councillor Perrier said. It was a very good presentation. There was definitely some interest and some very good questions that were raised, as some opportunities and possibilities that that may come forward.
Okay, so
just to elaborate on this a little bit for the other members of council that haven't been privy to this. So the presentation or the proposal from the town of Renfrew is that it would be that the current library board would disband, and that Greater Madawaska would enter into a service agreement with the town of Renfrew. And they would provide library services in Calabogie in the current location. There would be but it would allow for a reciprocal agreement so that anyone from Greater Madawaska could utilize the Renfrew Library, anyone from Renfrew could utilize the Greater Madawaska Library. You could take books back to either location. So that's what, in a very brief nutshell, what it entails. I know the question is going to be, well, what's the budget? And there has been a rough budget prepared, and there is an additional cost of approximately $5,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the numbers, I didn't have a chance to look at the numbers before the presentation, but there are some numbers that are incorrect. And for the additional $5,000, as Allison mentioned at this meeting, we're getting more services. But again, the devil's in the details, and we have some very competent people from the library board, as well as Kelly Thompson, that are going to look at this. And I'm confident we'll come up with something, because there definitely are synergies that we can achieve.
Councilor McPherson.
So the CAO is reading my mind, but only partially. The other question that I have, cost obviously always plays a part in my thinking. But the other thing that I'm wondering about, and Lucy, I'm sure that, as you said, with a very competent existing library board, who's not going to sit and have the wool pulled over their eyes. One of the things the question that always comes up in this sort of situation is autonomy, and do you end up giving away your rights and abilities to be able to do things that might be unique to Greater Madawaska? And so the only thing that I would hope is that in reviewing this proposal, it's not just the dollars, and it's also not just additional capabilities that might be added, but it also has to take into consideration any uniqueness that might exist within our existing library, and ensure that by entering into some form of an agreement, that we won't end up giving away or losing some of those capabilities.
Well, I have to, Councillor McPherson, I have to agree with you, because initially that was the board's first concern, is autonomy, and programs that we pre this coming forward, the rebranding and Speakers Bureau. However, the two libraries and the folks that are going to work on the service agreement are quite cognizant that we want to come out with a service agreement that is win-win, and it's not going to go like this. It's going to be, the Renfrew Public Library have some programs that we were thinking of, and we have some programs that they want to borrow too. So it's like a sharing of initiatives. So I'm comfortable that the devil's in the details, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
I believe one very positive thing that's coming out of this is the fact that the ratepayers of the township everywhere can use the Renfrew Library. And it is a request that we did have, especially from wards 2 and 3 before. Mm-hmm. And when we looked at it 2 years ago, it was cost prohibitive to go to it. But this allows us to have the library kind of looked after by Renfrew, but also have access to it. So that's a big win in my mind.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is that in the agreement, and we had asked for this as we went through, is that if any point we feel this isn't working, that we can get back out and go back to the way that we run it, so that one of the fears, and even when we discuss this in dealings with other townships, is there was always a fear if you go to a central library, if they chose to shut down a satellite.
Yeah.
Well, if they ever did, we have an option to opt out and go back to our original library board and running it ourselves. So between the two items of picking up access to the Renfrew Library and that, I'm feeling very good about it, but we await Lucy and the board's review of it and what they think of it.
I think, Your Worship, Kelly and the two board members, we know, and we've already addressed the fact that we need off ramps should this concept not work, or there's got to be a means by which to fix something that's not working. So yes, there will be off ramps built in the service agreement, or there will be a method by which we can change what's not working, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was an information item, Allison. And we'll move to the approval of the minutes. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. Be resolved the following minutes are approved by Council October 19th, 2020, regular council. All in favor? Carried. And we have a closed item now. So moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. The council meeting of November 16th, 2020 at 4:06 p.m. and enter into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. Litigation or potential litigation, Bluff Point, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal, local board, and staff. All in favor? Carried.